The midday sun beat down on Ricardo's auto spa, glinting off the polished chrome of freshly detailed vehicles. Eleanor, 51, shielded her eyes as she stepped out of her modest sedan, the familiar smell of car wax and soap a comforting scent on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. She was here to pick up her daughter-in-law Serena's car, a sleek, expensive SUV that always seemed a bit out of place in Ricardo's unassuming lot. Ricardo, a man in his late 50s with kind eyes and perpetually grease-stained hands, had been a family acquaintance for years, a reliable fixture in their small community. He always had a smile and a joke ready, but today, as Eleanor approached the small office, his usual jovial demeanor was noticeably absent. Ricardo emerged from the bay, wiping his hands on a rag, his gaze darting around before landing on Eleanor. A flicker of something. Anxiety? Fear? Crossed his face. A look Eleanor had never seen on him before. He offered a tight, almost forced smile. "Mrs. Eleanor," he greeted, his voice lower than usual. "The car's ready." "Thank you, Ricardo," Eleanor replied, a slight frown creasing her brow. "Is everything all right? You seem a little preoccupied." Ricardo hesitated, his eyes scanning the lot again. Then, he took a step closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "Mrs. Eleanor, can I speak to you for a moment? Privately?" He gestured towards the shadowy corner of the office, away from the younger workers bustling about. A shiver of unease traced its way down Eleanor's spine. This was entirely uncharacteristic of him. Once they were tucked away, Ricardo's usual easygoing posture dissolved into a nervous fidget. He leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper, laced with an urgency that instantly put Eleanor on high alert. "Ma'am," he began, his gaze serious, "you need to listen to me. Take your grandchildren, Leo and Noah, and leave before nightfall. Don't ask questions, just go." Eleanor's heart gave a jolt. "What are you talking about, Ricardo? Leave? Is something wrong with the boys?" Her mind reeled, conjuring images of her two beloved grandsons, bright and energetic, so full of life. What could possibly be so urgent? Ricardo took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly as he pulled a small, brown paper bag from under the counter. "I was cleaning out Serena's glove compartment, like she asked," he explained, his voice strained. "Just a routine detail, you know? And I found some disturbing things. It ain't right, Mrs. Eleanor. It just ain't right." He carefully pulled out a small, amber-colored prescription bottle. Eleanor's eyes immediately fixed on the label. Clonazepam. Her medical knowledge was basic, but she knew enough to recognize it as a powerful sedative. The most alarming detail, however, wasn't the medication itself, but the fill date. Just 3 days prior. And the bottle was nearly empty. Her gaze flicked to the name on the label, Serena Evans. A cold knot formed in Eleanor's stomach. Before she could process this, Ricardo produced several printed photographs, handling them as if they were fragile evidence. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. Her grandsons, Leo and Noah, lay slumped in various positions in their beds, on a sofa, even in a stroller. But it wasn't just them sleeping. Their limbs appeared unnaturally limp, their bodies utterly devoid of tension, their faces pale and almost vacant. It was a sleep that looked too deep, too unresponsive for healthy, active children. A primal fear, cold and sharp, began to prickle at the edges of Eleanor's composure. Ricardo then laid out a neatly handwritten page torn from a notebook. It was a schedule, meticulously detailing Leo and Noah's daily routines. Feeding times, play periods, nap times, and bedtimes. On the surface, it looked like the thoughtful planning of a concerned mother, but at the bottom, scrawled in Serena's distinctive, flowing hand, were notes that sent an icy shard through Eleanor's heart. Leo, half tablet, works in 20 minutes. Noah, quarter tablet, out for 3 hours minimum. Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. Her vision blurred for a moment, the world tilting precariously. The pieces clicked into place with a horrifying clarity. The empty bottle, the limp photographs, the precise schedule, the callous notes. This wasn't a mistake, or a misunderstanding. This was calculated. "I think she's been drugging those babies, Mrs. Eleanor," Ricardo whispered, his voice thick with revulsion, confirming Eleanor's burgeoning, unspeakable dread. The words hung in the air, heavy and dark. As if to cement the terrifying truth, Ricardo then produced a small, spiral-bound notebook. It was a log, like some grim scientific experiment. Flipping through it, Eleanor saw more of Serena's handwriting, detailing dosages and effects. Leo, more resistant, needed 3/4 tablet. Noah slept 12 hours straight, perfect for shopping trip with mom. The casual cruelty of it made Eleanor feel physically ill. Waves of nausea washed over her, and she had to lean against the counter to steady herself. Her grandsons, her precious Leo and Noah, were being systematically drugged, their innocent bodies manipulated for Serena's convenience. The betrayal, the abuse, the sheer heartlessness of it all was almost too much to bear. It was a violation of the most sacred trust, a mother's protection. "You have to get them babies out of there tonight, Mrs. Eleanor," Ricardo urged, his voice breaking through her shock. "I've made copies of everything. The bottle, the pictures, the schedule, this log. Just in case, for your safety, and theirs." He pushed a thicker envelope into her trembling hand. His foresight, his quiet act of heroism, shone like a beacon in the terrifying darkness. Eleanor stared at the evidence, her mind a whirlwind of horror and disbelief. She managed to nod, her throat tight with unshed tears. "Thank you, Ricardo." She choked out, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you. You may have just saved their lives." Her gratitude was profound. A desperate anchor in a sea of despair. The instinct to confront Serena, to scream, to demand answers, was overwhelming. But even in her shock, a colder, more strategic part of Eleanor's mind took over. She couldn't act on emotion. She couldn't risk Marcus, her son, siding with his wife, or worse, Serena disappearing with the children. She needed more proof, indisputable evidence, before she could even breathe a word to Marcus. Her grandson's safety was paramount, and discretion was her only weapon for now. As Eleanor drove away from Ricardo's, the afternoon sun now lower in the sky, she clutched the envelope tightly. The weight of the papers in her hand felt immense, the devastating truth contained within them threatening to crush her. The world outside the car window seemed ordinary, oblivious to the monstrous secret she now carried. She knew, with chilling certainty, that her life, and the lives of her grandsons, had irrevocably changed. She was no longer just a grandmother. She was a protector, a warrior in a silent war she hadn't asked for, and she would act strategically, meticulously, to gather every shred of proof needed to save Leo and Noah, no matter the cost. The days that followed Ricardo's alarming revelation were a torment for Eleanor. Each morning, she woke with a knot of dread in her stomach, forcing herself to maintain a facade of normalcy. She called Serena, exchanged polite pleasantries, and even offered to help with errands, all while her mind raced, dissecting every word, every nuance. She felt like a spy in her own family, her heart heavy with the secret she carried. The horror of those photographs and Serena's handwritten notes replayed in her mind like a sinister film, sharpening her senses, making her hyper-aware of everything. 3 days after her visit to Ricardo's, her son Marcus called. His voice, usually so cheerful, sounded a touch weary. "Mom," he began, "can you come over for dinner tonight? The boys have been asking for Grandma, and Serena could use a break." Eleanor's heart gave a hopeful leap. This was exactly what she needed, an opportunity to observe her grandsons firsthand, to see if the disturbing evidence matched the reality of their behavior. "Of course, dear," she replied, her voice carefully neutral. "I'd love to. What time?" That evening, as Eleanor stepped into Marcus and Serena's meticulously kept suburban home, a chill snaked through her despite the warmth of their greeting. The air, usually filled with the boisterous energy of young children, felt subdued. Leo, usually a whirlwind of activity, came to her with sluggish movements, his bright blue eyes, normally sparkling with mischief, appearing unusually glassy. Noah, the younger one, simply clung to his father's leg, his small body listless, his head drooping against Marcus's thigh. "Hello, my sweet boys," Eleanor said, bending down to hug them, forcing a bright smile. She felt their warmth, but beneath it, an unsettling stillness. Serena, chic and composed as ever, glided into the living room. "Oh, Mom, you're here. They've just been extra sleepy today. Growing boys need their rest, right?" She laughed lightly, a sound that grated on Eleanor's ears, knowing what she now knew. "They've been a bit under the weather, I think. Just a touch of a cold, probably." Eleanor forced herself to nod, offering a non-committal "perhaps." But her grandmother's intuition screamed otherwise. This wasn't the natural weariness of a child. It was something deeper, more profound, and utterly unnatural. During dinner, Eleanor watched Serena like a hawk. The boys picked at their food, unusually quiet, their usual squabbles and chatter replaced by a lethargic silence. Serena, meanwhile, made several trips to the kitchen, ostensibly to refill drinks. Eleanor, however, noticed something odd. Instead of using the pitcher of water or juice on the table, Serena would disappear into the kitchen, returning with a fresh cup for each boy. Eleanor distinctly remembered not seeing her open any new containers from the fridge. A subtle shift in her pattern, a break from the norm. "Leo, darling, finish your apple juice," Serena urged, holding the cup to her elder son's lips. Her voice held an undercurrent of sharpness, a veiled insistence that Eleanor found jarring. "Just a little more. Come on, Mama knows what's best." Leo, usually a fan of apple juice, grimaced but weakly complied, taking a few sips before pushing the cup away. After dinner, as Marcus helped the boys onto the sofa for a cartoon, Eleanor volunteered to clear the table and load the dishwasher. It was a familiar ritual, but tonight, her actions were driven by a different purpose. As she scraped plates, her eyes scanned the sink. There, amidst the usual detritus of a family meal, lay 2 small plastic cups, different from the glasses they had used for dinner. Inside, adhering to the bottom, was a faint, chalky white residue. Her heart pounded. This was it. Marcus walked into the kitchen, oblivious, reaching for a coffee mug. "Oh, those are from the boys' vitamins," he said casually, noticing Eleanor's gaze on the cups. "Serena's been giving them these new supplements lately. They're supposed to be natural sleep aids, or herbal supplements, she calls them. The boys have been having trouble sleeping lately, so she found these online." Eleanor's blood ran cold. "Trouble sleeping?" she asked, her voice tight, trying to sound casual. "Did their pediatrician recommend these, Marcus?" Marcus shrugged, reaching for the coffee. "Well, no, not specifically, but Serena says lots of parents use them, said they were highly recommended." He paused, looking at his mother, a slight frown touching his brow. "Why? Is something wrong, Mom?" No, darling," Eleanor quickly assured him, forcing a reassuring smile. "Just curious. You know me. Always interested in what's best for my grandsons." But inside, a furious storm raged. Natural sleep aids. The words echoed in her mind, a thinly veiled euphemism for the sedatives Ricardo had exposed. The chalky residue, the separate drink containers, the empty clonazepam bottle. It all converged into a horrifying tableau of calculated abuse. Later that evening, after Marcus walked her to her car, Eleanor found herself glancing back at the house. Through the bay window, she saw Leo and Noah, already tucked into bed, motionless. They were in the same deeply, unnaturally still sleep depicted in those photographs Ricardo had given her. It wasn't the peaceful slumber of a child worn out from play. It was a profound, almost comatose state. Serena stood in the doorway of their room, silhouetted against the soft glow of a nightlight, watching them. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips. Eleanor saw her lean in, adjusting a blanket. Then she heard Serena's voice, soft and satisfied, drift out from the open window. "They're such good sleepers now. It's been life-changing." The words were a dagger to Eleanor's heart. Life-changing. Yes, for Serena. For her convenience. For suppressing the natural energy. The laughter. The very childhood of her grandsons. The monstrous truth was laid bare before her eyes. Serena wasn't just giving them supplements. She was systematically drugging them to make her life easier, silencing their exuberance, their needs, their very existence. Driving home, Eleanor knew with absolute certainty what she had to do next. She needed to observe the boys without Serena's interference. She needed an opportunity to be alone with them, to truly understand the extent of their sedation, and gather more direct evidence. She would volunteer to babysit. It was the only way. And she would play the part of the doting, unsuspecting grandmother perfectly. The war was escalating, and Eleanor was ready for battle. Eleanor's opportunity came sooner than she expected. Just a few days after her unsettling dinner at Marcus and Serena's, her son called again. "Mom," he said, his voice cheerful this time. "Serena and I are planning a little anniversary dinner this weekend. We were hoping you might be able to babysit the boys overnight. It would be a huge help." A surge of triumph mixed with a pang of dread coursed through Eleanor. This was her chance. "Of course, darling," she replied, her voice warm and accommodating. "I'd love to have my boys for a sleepover. We can make a whole weekend of it." Her true intention, however, was far from a simple sleepover. Eleanor planned to meticulously observe Leo and Noah, free from Serena's influence, and, crucially, free from her vitamins. This weekend would be her controlled experiment, the confirmation she desperately needed. When Marcus and Serena dropped the boys off on Friday evening, Eleanor maintained her pleasant demeanor, chatting about their dinner plans while secretly scrutinizing her grandsons. They still seemed a bit subdued. A lingering effect, she suspected, of Serena's last dosage. But the moment their parents were out of sight, driving away, a miraculous, heartbreaking transformation began to unfold. As the evening wore on and no natural sleep aids were administered, Leo's natural energy returned with a vengeance. He was no longer the quiet, sluggish child Eleanor had seen days earlier. He was a whirlwind, bouncing off the walls, chattering non-stop about dinosaurs and superheroes, his blue eyes sparkling with mischief and curiosity. He pulled out every toy, built towering forts with couch cushions, and filled the living room with the joyous, cacophonous noise of a healthy, vibrant 6-year-old. Eleanor watched him, a bittersweet ache in her chest. This was her Leo, the boy she knew and adored, finally allowed to be himself. Noah, the younger one, underwent an even more profound change. The listless, clinging toddler disappeared, replaced by a giggly, playful 3-year-old. He meticulously built elaborate block towers, his small hands working with surprising dexterity, occasionally dissolving into fits of infectious laughter at some imagined triumph or silliness. He chased Leo around the house, his little legs pumping, his cheeks flushed with excitement. The house, once quiet and melancholic during her previous visit, now resonated with the infectious sound of pure, unadulterated childhood joy. Eleanor watched them, a lump forming in her throat. This was how they truly were meant to be. This vibrant, boisterous energy, this boundless curiosity, this innocent delight in the world. It had all been systematically suppressed by Serena. Her worst fears were not only confirmed but magnified by the sheer vibrancy of their revived personalities. The systematic drugging wasn't just making them sleep. It was stealing their very essence. Throughout the weekend, Eleanor became a meticulous documentarian. She covertly took videos of them playing, their laughter echoing, their movements free and unencumbered. She snapped photographs of their bright, alert faces, so different from the unnaturally limp images Ricardo had shown her. She kept detailed notes in a hidden journal, recording their energy levels, their moods, their appetites, every observation a damning piece of evidence against Serena. On Sunday morning, as the scent of sizzling bacon and hot pancakes filled the kitchen, Leo sat at the counter, swinging his legs, eagerly awaiting his breakfast. Eleanor flipped a pancake, her heart a mix of sorrow and fierce determination. "Grandma," Leo began, his voice surprisingly serious for a 6-year-old. "Sometimes I feel really weird after dinner at home." Eleanor froze, her hand hovering over the griddle. "Weird, sweetheart? How do you mean?" she asked gently, her voice carefully modulated to hide the sudden frantic beating of her heart. "Like, far away," he explained, frowning slightly. And sometimes I can't remember things, and my head feels fuzzy. Mama says it's because I'm getting bigger and need more sleep, but it feels scary, like I'm floating away. Before Eleanor could respond, Noah, who was usually less verbal, chimed in, his small voice surprisingly solemn. I don't like the sleepy juice, Grandma. It makes my tummy hurt. Eleanor's hands began to tremble. Her worst fears, articulated by the innocent voices of her grandsons. Sleepy juice, sweetheart? She managed, trying to keep her voice steady, to not betray the storm raging inside her. What's that? Noah looked up, his big, innocent eyes wide. The medicine Mama puts in our cups, he explained plainly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. She says, it helps us sleep good. But I don't want to sleep all the time. I want to play. The words hit Eleanor with the force of a physical blow. Her sweet, innocent grandsons had been trying to communicate their distress all along, in their own childlike ways, and no one had truly listened. The glassy eyes, the sluggishness, the quietness. They weren't just sleepy or growing. They were suffering, trapped in a drugged haze, their cries for help dismissed as normal childhood whims. Later that night, after dropping off a now energetic Leo and Noah back at their parents' house, Eleanor drove home in a haze of raw emotion. The boys, vibrant and full of life, had clung to her, begging to stay, and the thought of them returning to Serena's drugged existence tore at her soul. The evidence was overwhelming, incontrovertible. She had her videos, her photos, her notes, and most painfully, the chilling confessions from her grandsons themselves. But she still couldn't involve Marcus. Not yet. He was too blind, too trusting of Serena. He would dismiss her concerns, perhaps even accuse her of overreacting or trying to interfere. She needed more than just a grandmother's observations and a car mechanic's suspicions. She needed professional help, irrefutable medical evidence, and a legal strategy. This wasn't just about saving her grandsons from their mother. It was about protecting them from potential harm in a messy custody battle. Eleanor knew her next steps had to be carefully calculated, every move precise and deliberate. The war was far from over, and Eleanor was just beginning to arm herself. Monday morning arrived, bringing with it a renewed sense of purpose for Eleanor. The raw emotion of the weekend had solidified into a steely resolve. She needed professional confirmation, a medical voice to validate her terrifying suspicions. Without hesitation, she called Dr. Hayes, her trusted physician of 15 years, and secured an appointment for that afternoon. Her voice, though calm, conveyed an undeniable urgency that the receptionist clearly picked up on. Dr. Hayes, a man in his late 50s with a kind, reassuring manner, greeted Eleanor with a warm smile. But as Eleanor began to speak, his smile slowly faded. She recounted everything: Ricardo's discovery, the empty clonazepam bottle, the chilling schedule, the photographs of the unnaturally limp boys, Serena's natural sleep aids, the chalky residue in the cups, and finally, the heartbreaking transformation of Leo and Noah during their weekend with her. She even showed him the discreet videos and photos she had taken, showcasing their vibrant, untamed energy. As Eleanor laid out the evidence, she carefully presented the printed photographs of the prescription bottle and Serena's handwritten notes, alongside the images of her grandsons, in their eerie, sedated sleep. Dr. Hayes' face, usually calm and professional, grew visibly paler with each detail. He listened intently, his expression morphing from concern to deep gravity. Eleanor, he finally said, his voice low and serious, what you're describing is very, very serious. Clonazepam is a powerful benzodiazepine. It's not meant for children, certainly not at the frequency you're suggesting, and definitely not without strict medical supervision. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his thinning hair. Administering a drug like that to young children, especially for non-medical reasons, is a profound abuse. He went on to explain the potential long-term effects with a sobering clarity. Impaired cognitive development, leading to learning difficulties, significant memory issues, altered sleep patterns that could persist for years, and, perhaps most disturbingly, the risk of physical and psychological dependency. Children's brains are still developing, Eleanor, he stressed. Introducing such a potent sedative could have irreversible consequences. Then, he addressed the boy's newfound energy at her home. If this abuse has been ongoing, as the evidence suggests, then the children are likely experiencing withdrawal symptoms when they are with you, off the medication. That surge of energy, the heightened emotions, even the complaints of feeling weird or having a fuzzy head, those are classic signs of withdrawal from benzodiazepines. Eleanor felt a cold, hard blow to her chest. Withdrawal symptoms. The words resonated with a sickening finality. Her innocent grandsons, the joyful, boisterous boys she had cherished over the weekend, were not just energetic, they were suffering from drug withdrawal. The confirmation was physically striking, a visceral confirmation of her deepest fears. It wasn't just neglect, it was torture. Eleanor, Dr. Hayes concluded, his gaze firm and direct. You get them somewhere safe, as soon as you possibly can. And then, without delay, you call Child Protective Services. This is a clear case of medical child abuse, and it needs to be reported immediately. Driving home from Dr. Hayes's office, Eleanor felt the immense weight of the decision he had laid before her. Child Protective Services. It was a terrifying thought, a path that would irrevocably alter her family, expose their deepest wounds, and potentially pit her against her own son. But the images of Leo's faraway eyes and Noah's sleepy juice complaints, coupled with the doctor's stark diagnosis, solidified her resolve. There was no other choice. Later that Wednesday morning, as Eleanor sat planning her next steps, her phone rang. It was Marcus. "Mom," he said, sounding relieved. "Serena's mother in Phoenix has had a little fall. Nothing serious, but Serena feels she needs to go help out for a bit. She's leaving tomorrow. Would you be able to take the boys for a few days, maybe even a week? Just until Serena gets back?" Eleanor's heart nearly stopped. It was as if fate itself had intervened. A providential chance, a clear, undeniable window to get the boys to safety, away from Serena, and to gather the unshakable medical evidence Dr. Hayes had emphasized. It was the answer to her prayers, a desperate, almost divine intervention. "Of course, darling," Eleanor managed to say, her voice trembling slightly with hidden relief and a surge of adrenaline. "I'd love to have them. Don't worry about a thing." She quickly made arrangements for Marcus to drop them off the following day. The moment she hung up, Eleanor called Dr. Hayes again. "I have them," she announced, her voice filled with a mixture of urgency and triumph. "Marcus is bringing the boys tomorrow. Can you see them?" "An emergency appointment, perhaps Friday morning?" Dr. Hayes, understanding the gravity, cleared his schedule. "Bring them in, Eleanor. First thing Friday." Eleanor knew she couldn't face this alone. She needed a witness, someone trustworthy and discreet. Her mind immediately went to Miss Lee, her next-door neighbor, a retired elementary school teacher with a reputation for sharp wit and unwavering integrity. She walked over, her stomach churning, and poured out the entire horrifying story. She showed Miss Lee the photos, the notes, the doctor's analysis, everything. Miss Lee listened, her kind face hardening with each revelation, eventually turning pale with shock and outrage. "Those poor babies," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Eleanor, you're doing the right thing. The only thing. Whatever you need, I'm here. I'll come to the doctors with you. I'll testify. Anything." Her unwavering support was a much-needed balm to Eleanor's frayed nerves. With Dr. Hayes' confirmation and Miss Lee's steadfast presence, Eleanor felt a renewed sense of strength. The battle was truly beginning. Don't miss a single detail of this unfolding drama. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend, and subscribe to follow along. Your support means the world as I share this journey of love and courage. At precisely 4 o'clock that afternoon, Marcus and Serena's sleek SUV pulled into Eleanor's driveway. Eleanor stood by the door, a welcoming smile plastered on her face, her heart thumping a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Every fiber of her being was on high alert, watching Serena for the slightest flicker of suspicion in her eyes, a hint that she might sense Eleanor's true intentions. But Serena, though her usual composed self seemed genuinely preoccupied, her attention clearly focused on her mother's predicament in Phoenix. "Mom, thank you again for doing this," Marcus said, relief evident in his voice as he helped Leo and Noah out of the car. The boys, still somewhat subdued, offered Eleanor shy waves. Serena approached, a small plastic bottle in her hand. "Here are their vitamins," she said, handing it over. Eleanor's skin crawled as her fingers brushed against the bottle, recognizing the familiar shape of the small pills within, the natural sleep aids Marcus had mentioned. "Leo gets 1 tablet before bed, and Noah gets half," Serena instructed, her tone firm. Then, she added a chilling postscript, her voice devoid of any real concern, merely a statement of convenience. "If they seem extra energetic or have trouble sleeping, just give them an extra vitamin. It helps them settle down." Eleanor nodded, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. "Of course, dear. Don't you worry about a thing." She clutched the bottle, a testament to Serena's deliberate deception. The moment Marcus and Serena drove away, Eleanor practically ran to her bedroom, hiding the bottle deep in her dresser drawer, a piece of damning evidence locked away. Taking a deep, bracing breath, Eleanor sat Leo and Noah down on the sofa, her heart heavy with the task ahead. This was going to be the hardest conversation of her life. She looked into their innocent faces, seeing the lingering shadow of their mother's manipulation, and a fierce protectiveness surged through her. "Boys," she began, her voice as gentle as she could make it. "Grandma needs to tell you something important about those vitamins Mama gives you." Leo looked confused, his brow furrowed. "But Mama says we have to take them, Grandma. They make us sleep good." Noah's eyes, wide and apprehensive, darted between Eleanor and his brother. "Are we in trouble, Grandma?" he whispered, his small voice trembling. Eleanor immediately knelt, embracing them both. "No, sweethearts, no, you are absolutely not in trouble. Never, ever. This isn't your fault." She looked into their eyes, trying to convey all the love and reassurance she felt. "Those medicines, those vitamins Mama gives you, they aren't actually good for you. They make you sleepy, yes, but they also make you feel fuzzy and sometimes confused. They make you not feel like playing. And that's not right for growing boys like you." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Now, because you've been taking them for a while, you might feel a little uncomfortable for a few days as the medicine leaves your system. You might have trouble sleeping or feel extra restless, but that's okay. Grandma is here, and we'll get through it together, all right?" Leo and Noah looked at each other, then back at Eleanor, a mix of bewilderment and a fragile trust in their eyes. It was a lot for their young minds to process, but Eleanor saw a flicker of understanding, a tiny spark of recognition of what she was saying. The first night was indeed rough. Eleanor stayed up late, listening to the muffled sounds from the boys' room. Both had difficulty falling asleep, tossing and turning, their little bodies restless without the artificial sedation. Eleanor went in to check on them several times, offering quiet comfort, a glass of water, or simply a reassuring presence. Leo woke twice from nightmares, calling out softly in his sleep. An occurrence that hadn't happened in months, according to Marcus. While heartbreaking to witness, Eleanor found it oddly encouraging. It meant their systems were actively fighting off the lingering effects, their minds starting to process emotions that had been dulled. By Thursday evening, the change was truly remarkable. It was as if a veil had been lifted, a heavy blanket removed from their spirits. Leo was back to his old, energetic self, a whirlwind of questions and boundless curiosity. "Grandma, why do birds fly? How do cars work? Can we build a spaceship out of blankets?" His voice, once subdued, now filled the house with cheerful inquiries. Noah, too, had transformed. He was genuinely laughing again, his giggles echoing through the rooms, not the subdued, almost hesitant sounds Eleanor had grown accustomed to. He chased Leo, shrieking with delight, and his eyes were bright, fully present, brimming with the joyful innocence of a 3-year-old. They played for hours, building elaborate fort cities in the living room, their imaginations running wild. At bedtime, they demanded story after story, their minds engaged, their bodies finally tired from honest play rather than artificial lethargy. Eleanor read to them until her voice was hoarse, her heart swelling with a bittersweet joy. This was her boys, finally free. Throughout these days, Eleanor meticulously documented everything. Her phone was constantly in her hand, capturing videos of their vibrant play, photos of their bright, animated faces, and detailed notes in her hidden journal about their revived energy levels, their moods, and their increasingly engaged interactions. Miss Lee, her trusted neighbor, also played a crucial role. She visited daily, ostensibly for tea, but her true purpose was to be an independent witness to the boys' transformation. She would observe them playing, listen to their chatter, and quietly confirm Eleanor's observations. One afternoon, as Leo and Noah were enthusiastically reenacting a superhero battle in the backyard, Miss Lee watched them, tears welling in her eyes. "Eleanor," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It's like watching flowers bloom after a long, dark winter. Those boys are coming back to life." Her words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with Eleanor, confirming her agonizing journey had brought them to the very beginning of their recovery. Don't miss a single detail of this unfolding drama. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend, and subscribe to follow along. Your support means the world as I share this journey of love and courage. Friday morning arrived, crisp and clear, but for Eleanor, it was charged with a heavy mix of anticipation and dread. She drove Leo and Noah to Dr. Hayes's office, her heart a drumbeat of purpose. Miss Lee accompanied them, a silent but steadfast presence, holding Noah's small hand. Dr. Hayes, true to his word, had cleared his schedule. He greeted the boys with a gentle, reassuring demeanor, engaging them in playful conversation as he began his examination. He thoroughly checked their reflexes, listened to their hearts and lungs, and observed their remarkably heightened energy levels. He had them perform simple cognitive tasks, noting their responses. He took careful notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. The most crucial part of the examination, however, was the drawing of blood samples. Eleanor explained to the boys, as simply as possible, that the doctor needed to check if their bodies were completely healthy, and they bravely offered their arms, distracted by Miss Lee's encouraging words and a colorful sticker. After the examination, while the boys were happily occupied with toys in the waiting room with Miss Lee, Dr. Hayes called Eleanor into his private office. His expression was solemn, but there was also a hint of quiet satisfaction. "Eleanor," he began, "what you've documented here, combined with my examination and the blood work, is compelling evidence of systematic medication abuse." He paused, looking directly into her eyes. "These children show classic signs of recovering from benzodiazepine dependency. Their blood work will confirm the presence of the drug, and its levels, which we'll have back within a day or two." A wave of relief and dread washed over Eleanor. Relief that her suspicions were confirmed, dread at the implications. "Permanent damage?" "Doctor?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, the fear for her grandson's future clutching at her throat. Dr. Hayes offered a small, reassuring smile. "If the abuse stops now, and they are allowed to recover in a safe, nurturing environment, they should recover completely. Children are remarkably resilient, Eleanor." His gaze softened. "You may have saved their lives. Had this continued, the long-term effects, both physical and neurological, could have been severe, even fatal in extreme cases." His words echoed in Eleanor's mind, a terrifying validation, a heavy weight of responsibility. That afternoon, back at home, Eleanor made the call she'd been dreading, the one that would irrevocably alter the course of her family's life. She contacted Child Protective Services, CPS. Her voice was steady as she recounted the story, her carefully gathered evidence providing a solid foundation for her claims. Within an hour, a callback came, and shortly after, a professional and experienced caseworker, Officer Anya Sharma, arrived at Eleanor's house. Officer Sharma was a woman of calm efficiency, her demeanor empathetic yet firm. Eleanor, with Miss Lee by her side for moral support, laid out everything. She presented the envelope containing Ricardo's findings, the empty clonazepam bottle, the chilling photographs, Serena's handwritten schedule, and the sinister logbook. She then showed Officer Sharma her own meticulous documentation. The videos of the boys' lethargy before detox, the vibrant energy of their recovery, the photos of their bright faces, and her detailed notes. Finally, she provided Dr. Hayes' preliminary findings, his observations, and the fact that blood tests were pending. Officer Sharma reviewed the evidence methodically, her expression neutral but her gaze sharp and observant. When she was finished, she looked up, her blue eyes meeting Eleanor's. "Mrs. Vance, this is substantial evidence, more than we usually get at this stage. We'll need to move quickly." Then, her voice softened slightly, a note of warning in her tone. "I need to be clear with you, Mrs. Vance. Once we start this process, there's no going back. This will likely tear your family apart. Your son will be deeply affected, and it will be an incredibly painful and public process." Eleanor looked out the window, where Leo and Noah were absorbed in building a magnificent sandbox castle, their laughter ringing freely in the afternoon air. The image solidified her resolve. She turned back to Officer Sharma, her voice unwavering. "They're worth it," she stated firmly. "They're worth everything." Officer Sharma nodded, a flicker of admiration in her eyes. "Given the severity of the alleged abuse and the medical evidence, our priority is the children's immediate safety. We would propose placing the boys in protective custody with you as their temporary guardian, pending a formal hearing and further investigation." Eleanor didn't hesitate. "I accept." Absolutely. The thought of them returning to Serena's care, even for another day, was unthinkable. "The hearing will be difficult," Officer Sharma warned. "It could get ugly. Your daughter-in-law will deny everything, and your son may struggle to believe you. But those boys can't protect themselves," Eleanor replied, her gaze firm. "Someone has to. And I will." As Officer Sharma packed up her files, promising to initiate the process immediately, a sense of grim satisfaction mingled with deep sorrow settled over Eleanor. The path ahead was arduous and heartbreaking, but for Leo and Noah, she would walk it without flinching. Later that evening, just as Eleanor was tucking the boys into bed, her phone rang. It was Marcus. "Mom," he said, his voice a little rushed. "Serena's finished up sooner than expected with her mom. We're actually going to drive back Saturday instead of Sunday. Serena's anxious to get home to the boys." Eleanor's blood ran cold. Saturday. That was tomorrow. Her window of opportunity, so carefully planned, was rapidly shrinking. The legal process, as Officer Sharma had explained, would not be instant. Serena would be home, and the situation would become infinitely more complicated. A new wave of dread, cold and sharp, washed over her. Time was now her most formidable enemy. Don't miss a single detail of this unfolding drama. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend, and subscribe to follow along. Your support means the world as I share this journey of love and courage. The phone call from Marcus on Friday evening had shattered Eleanor's fragile sense of control. Less than 24 hours. That was all the time she had before Marcus and Serena would return, before her carefully laid plans could be completely derailed. Her world, which had been teetering on the brink of chaos, now felt as if it was about to explode. She immediately called Officer Anya Sharma, her voice laced with a desperate urgency. "Officer Sharma, Marcus just called. They're coming back tomorrow, Saturday afternoon, not Sunday. Can the emergency custody order be in place by then?" Officer Sharma, ever the professional, remained calm. "Mrs. Vance, I understand your concern. We've been expediting the process. The emergency custody order for Leo and Noah, naming you as temporary guardian, will be in place by Saturday afternoon. We will also have an emergency restraining order against Serena, preventing her from having unsupervised contact with the boys." Her words were a lifeline, a desperately needed assurance in the storm of Eleanor's anxiety. Saturday afternoon arrived, dragging its feet with agonizing slowness. Eleanor watched the clock, her stomach churning, as Leo and Noah played innocently in the backyard. Then, just after 2 o'clock, a sedan and a police cruiser pulled into her driveway. Officer Sharma, accompanied by another caseworker and a uniformed police officer, emerged. their presence a stark, official reminder of the gravity of the situation. Eleanor's heart pounded, but she took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Boys," she called out, her voice clear and steady. "Come inside, darlings. There are some people here who need to talk to us." Leo and Noah, their faces flushed from play, scampered inside, their curious eyes immediately fixing on the new arrivals. Officer Sharma, with her practiced kindness, knelt down to their level, her smile gentle. "Hi there, Leo and Noah. My name is Anya. I work for an organization that makes sure children are safe and happy. We just need to chat with you both for a little while." The boys were taken to separate rooms for interviews, a necessary but heartbreaking step. Eleanor waited in the living room with Miss Lee, listening to the muffled whispers, her heart aching for her grandsons. Noah, the younger one, struggled to articulate his feelings, his small voice echoing in the quiet house. "The sleepy medicine makes my head feel fuzzy. Yesterday feels far away," he'd managed to explain, his confusion palpable. Leo, more articulate, bravely recounted his experiences. "Mama said the vitamins would help me sleep better, but they made me feel weird. I didn't like them, but Mama said I had to take them." Their innocent words, though broken, were powerful, confirming everything Eleanor had suspected and documented. By 4 o'clock, the paperwork was complete. Eleanor held the official documents in her trembling hands. The temporary custody order, legally placing Leo and Noah in her care, and the emergency restraining order against Serena Evans. It was done. The legal wheels were in motion. Just as the last signatures were scrawled and the documents stamped, the familiar rumble of Marcus's car pulled into the driveway. Eleanor's breath hitched. This was it, the moment of confrontation she had dreaded, yet simultaneously prepared for. Officer Sharma's team discreetly moved into the kitchen, ready to enter the living room at Eleanor's signal. Marcus and Serena walked through the front door, their faces tired but expectant. Serena's eyes immediately searched for the boys, a feigned maternal anxiety on her face. "Mom, where are the boys? Are they okay?" Marcus, however, noticed the official-looking document splayed across the coffee table first. His eyes widened in confusion, then narrowed in suspicion. "Mom? What the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice laced with an unfamiliar anger. Eleanor took a deep, fortifying breath. The words, so long rehearsed in her mind, now felt impossibly heavy. "Marcus," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I found evidence that Serena has been drugging the boys systematically. For months." She gestured towards the pile of documents. "These are legal papers from Child Protective Services." Marcus stared at her, his face a mask of disbelief, then it twisted into a furious scowl. "Drugging them? Mom, that's ridiculous. What's gotten into you? Are you trying to cause trouble?" He turned to Serena, his eyes searching for reassurance. "Honey, what is she talking about?" Serena, ever the actress, feigned innocence with remarkable composure. Her eyes welled up with what looked like tears, and her voice trembled. "I don't know, Marcus. Your mother is saying terrible things. Those are just vitamins, natural supplements to help them sleep better. She's twisting everything." Eleanor met Serena's gaze, her own eyes blazing with a cold fury. "Clonazepam isn't a vitamin, Serena. It's a powerful anti-anxiety medication. And you've been giving it to my grandsons, systematically, to sedate them for your own convenience." She held up the empty pill bottle, its amber glass glinting ominously in the afternoon light. Just then, the kitchen door swung open, and Officer Sharma, the other caseworker, and the uniformed police officer stepped into the living room. Officer Sharma's presence immediately brought an unnerving formality to the chaotic scene. Her gaze swept over Marcus and Serena, then settled on Marcus. "Mr. Evans," she began, her voice calm and authoritative. "I am Officer Sharma with Child Protective Services. We are here today because we have received credible reports of child abuse concerning Leo and Noah. An investigation is now formally underway." The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of their implications, sealing the fate of their fractured family. Don't miss a single detail of this unfolding drama. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend, and subscribe to follow along. Your support means the world as I share this journey of love and courage. Officer Anya Sharma's entrance into the living room immediately shifted the dynamic, injecting an undeniable air of authority. She calmly but firmly informed Marcus of the investigation, then laid out the evidence, one damning piece after another. Marcus's face, already pale, turned ashen. He stared at the photographs of his drugged sons, their bodies limp and vacant, images that now held a terrifying new meaning. He read Serena's own detailed log of dosages and effects, a chilling testament to her calculated cruelty. Finally, he skimmed Dr. Hayes' medical evaluation, the clinical terms of benzodiazepine dependency painting a stark picture of his children's suffering. "This can't be real," Marcus whispered repeatedly, his voice hollow, his world crumbling around him. He looked from the evidence to Serena, then back to the official documents. A man lost in a nightmare he couldn't comprehend. Serena, seeing the undeniable weight of the evidence, knew her feigned innocence was no longer sustainable. Her composure, which had held so remarkably, finally began to crack. She changed tactics, shifting from denial to justification. "Fine," she snapped, her voice brittle. "Maybe I did give them something to help them sleep. But do you have any idea what it's like, Marcus? Do you have any idea what it's like dealing with hyperactive children 24 hours a day? With your frequent absences, I was exhausted. I was at my breaking point." Marcus, already reeling, snapped at her admission. "You're admitting it? You actually drugged our children? The children you were supposed to protect?" His voice rose, tinged with a raw blend of horror and betrayal. Serena's composure completely shattered then. Tears, real tears this time, streamed down her face. But they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. "It was my own prescription, okay? I have anxiety. I was just sharing it with the boys, when they were being impossible. It's not like I was trying to hurt them." The room erupted. Marcus let out a guttural cry of anguish, a sound that tore at Eleanor's heart. "Not trying to hurt them? You poisoned them, Serena!" he roared. Officer Sharma and the uniformed officer immediately intervened, separating Marcus and Serena as the situation threatened to spiral out of control. "Serena Evans," Officer Sharma stated, her voice calm but firm, "you are under arrest for child endangerment and potential medical child abuse." As the police officer moved to handcuff her, Serena let out a shrill, indignant wail, protesting her innocence even as she was led away. With Serena gone, the room fell into a heavy silence. Marcus slowly turned to Eleanor, his eyes, once so full of a son's love, now clouded with pain, confusion, and a bitter accusation. "Did you know?" he choked out, his voice hoarse. "How long have you known about this, Mom?" Eleanor met his gaze, her own eyes filled with a weary sorrow. "I found out about a week ago, Marcus. From Ricardo, when I picked up Serena's car." "A week ago?" Marcus shouted, his anger now redirected at his mother. "And you didn't tell me? You didn't tell me my wife was poisoning our children?" Eleanor stood her ground, her voice firm. "I had to be sure, Marcus. I had to gather evidence, medical confirmation. I couldn't risk Serena disappearing with the boys, or you dismissing my concerns. I had to protect the boys first. I couldn't trust that you would believe me." She gestured to the remaining evidence on the table. The photographs, the detailed notes of Serena's actions, and the doctor's reports. Marcus, his hands trembling, picked up a photo Eleanor had taken of Leo and Noah, bright-eyed and energetic during their recovery at her house. Then, his gaze fell upon one of the pictures Ricardo had provided. Leo, unnaturally still and unconscious in the car seat. The contrast was devastating. "Oh, God," he whispered, collapsing onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. "What has she done to my boys?" It was a broken, heartbroken plea, the full weight of the betrayal crushing him. In the days that followed, Marcus moved into Eleanor's spare bedroom, a ghost of his former self. He took an immediate leave of absence from work, consumed by a crushing guilt and a profound sense of failure. He spent hours watching Leo and Noah, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and remorse, slowly trying to reconnect with the vibrant children he barely recognized. The psychological evaluation from Dr. Emily Carter, the specialist assigned by CPS, arrived a few days later. It confirmed Leo's memory gaps, explaining his feeling of being far away, and detailed Noah's consistent exposure to the medication since just after his 4th birthday, a systematic abuse that had robbed him of crucial developmental time. The police, armed with the restraining order and search warrants, searched Marcus and Serena's house. What they found hidden in a locked drawer in Serena's office was even more horrifying. A series of detailed journals dating back 3 years. Eleanor, with Marcus sitting beside her, read through them, her blood turning to ice. The journals were a chilling testament to Serena's calculated observations, her systematic increases in dosages, and her twisted pride in her clever methods. She documented how the boys would sleep like angels after their vitamins, how much easier her days were without their constant demands. Marcus read, aghast, how Serena's abuse escalated precisely when his work travels became more frequent, seeing the children not as beloved sons, but as inconvenient problems to be managed. The journals also revealed Serena researching stronger medications, even calling other doctors, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that she had no intention of stopping. This was not a moment of weakness or desperation. It was a cold, deliberate campaign of child abuse, meticulously recorded by the perpetrator herself. Don't miss a single detail of this unfolding drama. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend, and subscribe to follow along. Your support means the world as I share this journey of love and courage. The initial shock of Serena's arrest and the subsequent revelations left Marcus hollowed out, but the truth, however painful, was a necessary step towards healing. Dr. Emily Carter, the psychological specialist assigned by CPS, explained the profound psychological impact of benzodiazepines on developing brains. These drugs don't just sedate, she told Eleanor and Marcus, her voice grave. They can significantly affect memory formation, emotional regulation, and overall cognitive development, especially when administered over prolonged periods during critical growth stages. Brain scans showed decreased activity in Leo's memory and emotional processing areas, a stark visual of the damage. Yet, Dr. Carter reassured them, children are incredibly resilient. With consistent therapy, a stable environment, and unwavering love, they should recover completely. Further investigation by Officer Sharma's team uncovered even deeper layers of Serena's depravity. Her extensive research into child medication went beyond natural supplements. It showed her actively seeking out information on sedatives and their effects on children. Most shocking were the text messages recovered from her phone, exchanged with her mother in Phoenix. These messages revealed that Serena's mother not only knew about the drugging but actively encouraged it, offering tips and validating Serena's complaints about the boys' unruly behavior. It was a devastating revelation, exposing a generational pattern of abuse, a toxic inheritance passed down. District Attorney Lena Stone, a woman known for her unwavering commitment to justice, reviewed the overwhelming evidence. She rejected any potential plea deal, affirming Serena's actions as deliberate criminal behavior, a calculated and prolonged act of child abuse. There would be no leniency, no minimizing the harm inflicted. The night before the formal hearing, Marcus, still raw with guilt and grief, spent hours writing his victim impact statement. He read it aloud to Eleanor, his voice cracking with emotion. She stole 3 years of their childhood, he wrote. She stole their trust, their innocence, their right to be normal kids. She broke a bond that should have been sacred, and I let it happen. His pain was palpable, a testament to the depth of his awakening. 6 months later, a new normal had settled into Eleanor's home. It was a normal characterized by peace, healing, and the vibrant laughter of 2 boys thriving. Leo and Noah were academically caught up, their memories improving with therapy, their natural energy boundless. The glassy-eyed, subdued children were a distant, nightmarish memory. Serena, facing the overwhelming evidence and the unyielding stance of the district attorney, finally pled guilty to child endangerment. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and, most importantly for Eleanor and Marcus, Her parental rights were permanently terminated. It was a bittersweet victory, the end of one nightmare and the beginning of a long road to recovery. Marcus finalized his divorce, a quiet, somber affair. He was awarded full custody of Leo and Noah, and Eleanor was legally appointed as the boys' permanent legal guardian, a role she embraced with every fiber of her being. One afternoon, Marcus received a call. It was Serena's mother, requesting visitation with the boys. Marcus, his voice firm and unwavering, simply stated, "The cycle stops here." He hung up, his expression resolute. The toxic generational pattern of abuse would not be allowed to continue its insidious spread. At Riverside Park, Eleanor watched Leo and Noah race their bikes, their laughter echoing across the playground, bright and unburdened. It was a stark contrast to the joy Serena had stolen, a vibrant testament to their resilience. Marcus walked up to her, a hopeful look in his eyes. "Mom," he said, "I'm selling the house. It holds too many bad memories. I want to move closer to you. If that's okay." Eleanor's heart swelled. "There's a lovely house for sale, just 3 blocks away," she suggested, a warm smile gracing her lips. Eleanor's role in their daily lives was integral. She picked them up from school, helped with homework, cooked their meals, and read them stories at bedtime. She was helping them heal from their trauma, rebuilding their trust in adults, showing them what unconditional love truly meant. One evening, Ricardo, her old acquaintance, called. "Just checking in on the boys, Mrs. Eleanor," he said, his voice hesitant. "How are they doing?" Eleanor's heart filled with gratitude for his courage. "They're wonderful, Ricardo," she said, her voice brimming with happiness. "Absolutely wonderful. And Marcus is healing too." A few weeks later, Eleanor received news that Serena, after several violent outbursts within the prison system, had been moved to a psychiatric facility for intensive treatment. It was a grim end to a tragic story. But for Eleanor, it brought a strange sense of closure. That evening, Leo brought home a drawing from school. It depicted their reconstructed family, him, Noah, Daddy, and Grandma, standing proudly beside a stick-figure dog labeled "Future Best Friend." It was a simple drawing, but it captured the essence of their new life, a future built on love, safety, and genuine connection. As Eleanor tucked the boys into bed, she reflected on the profound lessons learned. Love didn't require control. Children deserve to be themselves, to be loud, to be curious, to be perfectly imperfect. Noah, snuggled under his blanket, yawned contentedly. "I'm glad the sleepy medicine is gone." "Grandma," he mumbled. "I like feeling like myself." Leo, already half asleep, added, "Mama used to say we were too much trouble. But you and Daddy say we're just right." Eleanor leaned down, kissing each boy's forehead. "You are just right," she affirmed, her voice thick with emotion. "Exactly as you are." Their family was smaller now, yes, but it was genuine, honest, and filled with a deep, abiding love. As she watched them sleep peacefully, their dreams finally free from the haze of sedatives, Eleanor knew this was the sweetest victory of all.